Okay, thank you everyone for being here tonight. My name is Leandra Blades. I've been living in this area. I live over near the top of Fairmont Hill where it turns into San Antonio, so that's kind of my area that I live in. I've had, my kids have all gone through this school district. They went to Fairmont, they went to Bernardo, and then we're a house divided. Some went to Esperanza, and then my youngest is currently at Yorba Linda High School. I became interested, or actually I wasn't even interested, I didn't really have this on my radar to run for school board. This happened in 2020 during COVID, and they came to me, a group of conservative women and parents came and said, hey, we're looking for people to run for school board. And so I told them no thank you, and they kept coming and coming, and then I kept hearing more and more parents were coming with their stories of things that were happening in the schools. And some of them mirrored, stories that I had had that my kids, were experiencing in the classroom, or maybe they'd had it with a certain teacher. But I wasn't real. I always thought that if something happened, maybe to my kid, it was just an isolated incident. What I was finding is that there was more and more incidents around that parents were complaining about. And they said, look, we just want to have a voice. Like, we have lost our voice. And we want to have a voice in our children's education. And so I said yes, and so it was kind of off to the races, very grassroots. We had a campaign team of about 10 people back then, maybe 2 or 3 walkers, and we still managed to win in 2020. We get on the board, and what had happened is Dr. Plutko, I met with him once I was elected, and he had put in for retirement. And so shortly before, I think 5 or 6 days before the 2020 election, the prior board, knowing that we had an election coming up with 3 spots opening up, they actually hired a superintendent. They went into the process, and then they hired someone after the election, after they had lost 3 seats. And so on November 10th, I believe it was, they hired Jim Elsasser as superintendent. We had kind of asked that it be put on hold because as new board members, we wanted to have, be able to participate in the process. We wanted to be able to have a say, in who the superintendent was, because once again, we were now representing the community. So we came on with Dr. Elsasser and myself, and it was Sean Youngblood, Marilyn Anderson, Carrie Buck, and Karen Freeman. The first thing that I noticed, and I noticed when I was campaigning, is that in the board meetings there was zero transparency, and that was why nobody at home knew what was going on. And so I advocated for live streaming in our board meetings, and we had some, there was 2 board members who really were not a fan of that, didn't want to do it, so it took a couple months to advocate for that. We finally got live streaming in our board meetings so parents could watch at home. And I know how busy we all are. I, would watch things at baseball games, watch meetings, you do certain things when your kids are at your sports, and so, but this was a way to get, parents to be more involved. I also noticed too, I said, where is our middle school sports? And they said, well, middle school sports went away in 2009 due to budget cuts. And I said, so I asked Elsasser, why do we continue to cut funding from kids? Is there someplace else, why would we cut middle school sports? So it's just things like that were going on that I was finding is that the programs were always cut from the students, always cut from the kids. And so that was one thing that I wanted to stop, and I wanted to take a second look at that. In 2022, Todd Frazier won his election against Karen Freeman, and that was really when we had a board majority, and we were able to push forward with things that the community was wanting. We were able to put El Dorado lights. When I got on the board, El Dorado, coaches, athletic directors, everybody came to us and said, hey, we really need lights on El Dorado's field. We've had 30 years of asking and 30 years of denial. And I said, well, why would we not have lights on a field, on a football field? And so once we couldn't have that vote, but 2022 came around, Todd Frazier, he voted with us to put the lights on, and then just this week, we have lights on El Dorado's football field. We've also been able to, I came over here, right here in this school, the teachers and even some administrators were saying you really need to go walk through Travis Ranch Middle School, or I'm sorry, elementary school, because they are an open forum like classrooms. And there's no walls, and the teachers were frustrated. They've been asking for 30 years for walls to be put up in their classrooms, because what What's happening here was we would have 4 teachers in a classroom with 130 kids. And they would have barriers, maybe the size of like as tall as the piano. But it wasn't like there was walls in the classroom. So when you walked into the room, you couldn't even hear yourself think because one teacher's talking over here, another over here. And so that's the type of thing that we would run into. And I said, well, how could we let this go for so long? And I said, isn't the union involved with, as the teachers, why isn't the union involved? Isn't this a working condition? Well, no, they're not doing anything for us. And so I went back and I advocated for the walls, and we got the walls up in Travis Ranch Middle School. Again, so when people say that we don't support myself and Ryan Miller and Maria Stubbs, Todd Frazier, that we don't support teachers or advocate for teachers, we've been listening to the teachers. The teachers just aren't the ones that are going up in the board meetings and speaking at the podiums. They're the phone calls, they're the coffees, they're the cocktails, they're the people that are meeting us on the side and telling us what they need because they are afraid of some retaliation if they go against, some of the union leadership. We were able to go a different route for hiring a superintendent. That's how we found Dr. Cherniss. We found that 2 of the search firms that the boards had been using, we actually had conflicts of interest because we had a former superintendent as the lead search person for Leadership Associates. His name was Dennis Smith.
Yep.
And then we also had a conflict of interest because one of the search firms that they had been using in the past was actually our law firm that we were using. So we had switched our law firm, and so we came across a search firm, which was one of the 5th search firms in the nation, called Hazard, Young, and Attia. And so we used them. They were out of Chicago, and we did a confidential search for Dr. Cherniss because we knew we needed a change. We had declining enrollment. Our enrollment had been declining since 2017, 400 students every year. So 400 students times 15,000 a kid, let's do the math here, and we're continuing to lose. So we knew we needed to make a change. We knew we needed someone to come in with leadership, innovation, someone to get our test scores up, and some way to attract our students to stay in our schools and in our community, and also to bring in new programs that will attract not only our community members and our parents and our families, but also members from the outside. So when I said we did a confidential search for Dr. Cherniss, we did it merit-based. And so when our search firm, we had about 40 to 50 applicants, and they narrowed it down to 4 to 5. The final day, we had 4 people come in for the interview. We did not know their race, we did not know their sex, we did not know anything about them except accomplishments. And they couldn't even give us like where they had worked, because knowing us, we would Google, who is this guy or who is this girl coming in? So Dr. Cherniss walked in. That was the first time we had actually met him, and what we did in our interview process is we had them give a 20-minute, basically, what is the word I'm trying to think? Yeah, like a business plan. Like they had to give us a presentation on what our strengths is, what our weaknesses are, and how they could do what they could do for our schools. And so in this, he noticed our declining enrollment. He noticed our test scores were consistently either going lower or just staying stagnant. And he says, I can fix all this. And also too, Dr. Cherniss, he also was the CBO for LA County Board of Education, which has a $14 billion budget, and he oversaw 81 school districts. So to come over here and have a $340 million budget and oversee 1 school district, we figured that that was something that would be in his realm. We also wanted somebody that not only understood education and innovation, but we knew that because, let's face it, look at what's going on in Sacramento right now. We either have a budget deficit or we're in a surplus, and nobody can ever figure out what it is. I mean, 2 years ago we thought we were in this great surplus, now we're in a deficit. And so we knew we had to have somebody who could lead this district, not only in the education realm, but also financially, and make sound business decisions. So that was one of the reasons why we liked him. But also too, another thing he said is, he says, within the month, I will have your kids in interventions in math, and I will raise your test scores. And so in the interview, we just believed he would do that he would fight for kids. He's a dad. He has, an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And so he understands what it's like to be a parent at home. He understands, what education is. He's been, in the classroom. He's been in all of the places. And so we put our trust in him, and he came in and he went to work. He did exactly what he said. You know, he did diploma pathways for our special education students. He got the kids going in the interventions. He did every single thing that he was asked of him. We told him that we needed to cut the fat at the district office because, you know, we have a lot of people. We knew that people were being paid out of contracts. We knew that there was some stuff going on that wasn't necessarily legal, and so he found that. We have a lot of stuff. We said we need a lot of accountability. We want accountability in the classrooms. We want accountability to our parents and to our communities. We want our schools to grow. And so that's what he did. He went around and he, you know, spoke to the principals and he said, your school does not stay stagnant. We continue to move forward as principals, as teachers, you know, as the community. Like, your school should be growing each and every year. And so I'm really proud of all of our principals and all of our teachers who are absolutely pushing their schools forward. One thing that we were also able to do was we created the Orange County School of Computer Science at Bernardo-Yorba. And so last year, Bernardo-Yorba had 550 students. This year we had 760 students. And so obviously, we do have some interest in the computer science school. It's our first district charter, which means that the principal is our principal, the teachers are our teachers, and we're using our own staff. And so we felt like there's a change in curriculum. You know, we do Singapore math there, we don't necessarily do Common Core math. There's just a different thing that we can offer our parents that's different from what they're receiving in hopes that they would stay in our district and not go to private schools and charter schools. And so it seems to be working. We also implemented the Universal Sports Institute, which is a a program through Parkview. And we have about 120 to 140 kids, I don't know what the final number is, that are in that program. And then I can proud to say that just this week, we opened up classes before school from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And they run two classes, two 30-person classes for high school. So our high school athletes have now been able to go in and access strength, agility, and weight and conditioning for free. And so we're offering that to our high school athletes, and we're hoping that soon we'll be able to also offer that in the afternoons. We also have a physical trainer who specializes in special education, and he's been going over to train with our special education students as well. So USI is not just for elite athletes. Obviously, it is for every student that's an athlete on our campus, but it's also for our special education kids as well. We've negotiated a multi-year contract with the teachers union. Our teachers have had, in the last 2 years, we've had 11 to 12% pay raises, and I know that we've had more. It's over 20% since I've been here, since 2020. We've hired a permanent school resource officer at Esperanza. We've opened Bryant Ranch preschools and 4 others throughout Placentia-Yorba Linda. We've partnered with local law enforcement to make Narcan available on all our campuses, and we've trained students, teachers, and parents. And we've also provided incentives for teachers who transfer into our district. We had at the beginning of the school year, we had a new teacher breakfast orientation. We had 93 teachers that we had hired that were new to our district. And we asked those who were able to come over now that they could bring their years of service over. And we had, I think, 15 to 20 teachers stand up who are now here that had 15 to 30 years of experience, which that wouldn't have been possible for them to come over in the past because we didn't accept their years of service. So now they're not penalized, they can come over. So we've been doing what we can for teachers, we've been doing what we can for students, we've been doing what we can, you know, for the community to help our schools grow, to grow our enrollment. Our test scores are up 3%. And so I attribute a lot of this to our decision making of hiring Dr. Cherniss. One thing about our board is another school district says, how are you doing these programs? And I said, what do you mean, how are you doing this? And he says, how is the teachers union allowing you to do this? And I said, we're not asking the teachers union. The teachers union is about pay and benefit and working conditions. We're doing the programs and we're doing what's good for kids. And then, you know, it all falls into place for the rest because we're here to serve the community, we're here to serve children, and we're here to give them the best education possible. And so I'm running again. I'm running, you know, we also have a critical race theory ban, which just basically says stick to the district district curriculum, and don't bring any outside noise or any type of supplemental curriculum that doesn't align with our district curriculum. We have that in place. They also mentioned our parental notification policy, which puts parents back in the driver's seat of education. And so that's what we're doing, and as you can see, does any of that sound political to you? Or does that just sound like we are working for students and we're working for parents in the community? So all of this nonsense about how I'm bringing politics because I'm a Republican, we're just working for the students. We're working to give the students the best education and to give you guys, keep you in the driver's seat of your child's education and to give them the best opportunity that they have in our district. And so I will be around if anybody has more questions. I know there's a lot of noise. I know people have been telling you there's teachers being fired and the district's on fire and everything's going down in flames. But what I've just told you, does that sound like we're a district in distress and that our schools need to be saved?
No.
I agree.
Common sense.